this isn't going to be a long video, but it is going to be an important one. Because Supernatural was important. Not just to me, but to millions of people. I mean, is it any wonder with over 300 episodes? That's 15 years of saving people, hunting things. You know, the family business. It's a historic run like no other. And all because
Dad's on a hunting trip. And he hasn't been home in a few days.
And then they did the fans dirty. I mean, this was like Game of Thrones finale all over again. Except, this time I actually cared. For a huge part of the fandom, the finale was just one giant letdown. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. You just couldn't look away. So what happened? Well, Dean died on a rusty nail. And then Sam continued to live his life without his brother and eventually have a kid. Cass was actually brought back, but was never seen or heard from. And Jack was elevated to a deity, basically, and he rearranged heaven, which may or may not be a good thing. I guess at this point, I don't really understand the point of heaven in the Supernatural verse, especially with the way that Jack has fixed it, I guess. What's the difference? Either you're living on Earth, or you're living in heaven. Either way, you're gonna have family with you now. So, why continue living on Earth? I guess the important point here is that Sam got what he always wanted. He got to live that ordinary, boring life. Grow old, have a kid, you know, the apple pie life that Dean was always talking about. It's basically exactly what he had in the beginning of the series. Complete with no brother. Look, I'm just gonna come out and say it. This episode was boring as fuck. It was just a montage of absolute nothingness. Completely empty. And anticlimactic. And haven't we seen it before? Like, the entire series proves that these brothers don't know how to let go. They don't know how to live without each other. So when this episode premiered, every feed on the internet absolutely exploded. I mean, the level of salt and anger were absolutely epic. So let me tell you now, your feelings, they are valid. This wasn't a shocking twist. This was just lazy writing. And this episode, it was terrible. And believe me, Supernatural has had its fair share of terrible episodes. But this just might top it. Dean fought and killed God. But it's a piece of metal that offs him in the end. I mean, obviously, Dean had to go because, you know, he almost caught the gay. Can I just say that Dean's death actually feels like a hate crime? First, Cass confesses and then is immediately killed. And now, Dean's dead. Guilt by association much? We already lost our collective shit over Destiel and that giant trash heap of an episode. But now this? The bar was already so incredibly low. I mean, it was like on the ground low. And they just dug their own graves. And we're supposed to praise them for it? Fuck off! I think most people probably expected some sort of like cast gender bent ending because Dean's straight. Honestly, as gross and disappointing as that would have been, it's definitely a better idea than the weird codependent fuck you we got in the end. The thing is I didn't need them to wrap everything up in a neat little package and put a bow on it. I would have been perfectly content with an open ending on a note of, we've got work to do. Because that's what they do. They help people. But Sam spent the rest of his life not helping people. I guess the supernatural family will always keep fighting. That's who we are. We're a community of people who want to help, just like the Winchesters did. Whether that's through charity work or just offering an ear to somebody who needs it. It's strange to think that a horror fantasy show inspired so much hope and love in the world, but at the same time crushed it. The season itself is just a giant mess. Did it feel like to anybody else that Chuck was just a bigger, badder Metatron obsessed with his stories? I guess we gotta talk about it. Part of the reason for the absolutely lackluster finale is due to the climate of the world right now. I mean, I guess the pandemic just took another thing from us. Being able to get that many people together to create the finale that we actually deserved would have been extremely difficult. Especially since they film up here in Vancouver, where I live. And our restrictions are a little more stringent than down in the States. One thing I actually enjoyed about this episode is the aspect of moving on and pushing forward. Sam had to deal with the emotional loss of his brother, and as somebody who has struggled with major depression almost my entire life, I really appreciated the one foot in front of the other approach that Sam took. That being said, letting go is not exactly on brand for the show. I guess what I'm trying to say is, this sucked. On so many levels. A major part of our life is over, and we feel cheated. And now I'm gonna go and watch some meme time, because at this point, I think I really need a cure for sadness. So, until next time, cheers.